So picture this. You've got this brilliantly talented chief information security officer, right?
Right.
And they walk into a corporate boardroom. They know literally every single inch of their company's tech stack. They have the data, they have the charts.
Probably endless charts.
Exactly, the endless charts. They have absolute mathematical proof of their team's hard work. And 10 minutes later, they walk out having completely tanked their career.
It happens all the time.
It really does. And why? Because they thought they were there to give a presentation when the board was actually waiting for a performance. So, welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We are on a mission today to shortcut your learning on a really high-stakes professional skill. Because whether you're a technical leader stepping into the C-suite, or a mid-level manager trying to get a budget approved, or really just someone who needs buy-in from the people writing the checks.
Right. Anyone pitching upwards.
Yeah, exactly. We are exploring how you communicate complex technical reality to top-level decision makers.
And our guide for this deep dive is a really insightful piece published just yesterday, March 18th, 2026. It's by GRC consultant Alex Seven, and it's titled Unspoken Rule Number 12. You don't present to the board, you perform.
Such a great title.
It is. And the core thesis here tackles this massive, just glaring translation failure in the corporate world because highly technical people, they fundamentally misunderstand what a board of directors is actually evaluating when they ask for an update.
Right. They think it's a classroom.
Exactly. But the boardroom is not a venue for information density. It is definitely not a classroom where you teach executives how your technology works. It's a credibility test.
The credibility test, I like that.
Yeah, and the big question we want you to keep in mind as we break this down today is basically this. How do you translate technical mechanics into strategic risk leadership?
So to understand how to actually succeed in that room, I think we first have to examine why so many incredibly smart people fail so spectacularly.
Well, it starts with the total misconception of the room's purpose. The source material calls this the status meeting trap.
The status meeting trap, right?
Yeah. A technical leader, like a CISO, assumes the purpose of their quarterly board reporting is to just, update the directors on everything the security program has accomplished.
So they just bring their homework to show the board.
Exactly. They spend weeks building these slide decks that are just dense with operational data. I'm talking vulnerability counts, patching statistics.
Compliance percentages.
Yes. They are essentially taking their internal team's operational dashboard and just throwing it up on a projector.
Which, makes perfect sense from their perspective. Right?
Oh, totally. Because that operational data is exactly how a CISO manages their department on a random Tuesday afternoon. It's how they measure output.
Right.
But the fatal disconnect happens because board members do not interpret operational metrics the way security professionals do, at all.
They speak a totally different language. It actually makes me think of a translator at the United Nations.
Okay, how so?
Well, if you're a diplomat, sitting there with your headphones on, you don't care about the complex syntax or the verb conjugations of the foreign language being spoken across the table.
Right, you just want the meaning.
Exactly. You just need the translator to tell you clearly and immediately if the other country is declaring war or signing a peace treaty. But the technical leader is coming in trying to teach the board grammar when the board just wants to know the geopolitical risk.
That is a perfect analogy, because the board's underlying question for every single slide you present, it isn't about the technology.
Are they actually asking then?
They are silently asking, is this leader in control of our organization's risk exposure?
Wow. Not, is the firewall configured correctly?
Exactly. They are evaluating your judgment. They want to see your visibility into the business, and they really want to know if you can manage uncertainty. And because technical leaders routinely misunderstand that, they predictably fall into 3 specific communication traps that just actively damage their credibility.
Right. And the piece outlines these traps so clearly. The first one is when technical depth replaces strategic clarity.
Yes, the classic mistake.
The leader is so comfortable in the weeds with their engineering team, right?
Yeah.
So they take that exact same mental model into the boardroom. They put up slides with complex architecture diagrams, or they start rattling off threat intelligence indicators and acronyms.
And the moment that happens, the board just tunes out.
They just glaze over.
Completely. They tune out the technical noise, and they instantly start making judgments about the leader's strategic capacity.
Because they can't connect the dots.
Right. When you focus entirely on the mechanics, the board struggles to connect that information to actual business impact. And the result is this subtle but really dangerous shift in perception.
What do you mean?
The directors start thinking, okay, this person understands technology deeply, but maybe they lack the executive mindset to grasp the strategic implications for the wider company. You essentially get pigeonholed.
You become the IT mechanic, not a strategic executive.
Ex-
Which leads directly into the second pitfall, which is metrics without meaning. We all know security dashboards are just stuffed with metrics.
Oh, yeah. Numbers everywhere.
Right. Number of vulnerabilities remediated, patch cycle completion rates, training participation. And to the person doing the work, those numbers validate their existence.
Sure, it proves they've been busy.
But Alex 7 points out that to a board, those numbers are entirely meaningless without context. The piece actually gives this highly relatable example of a CISO proudly presenting a slide that says they have achieved 95% patch compliance.
Right. And an inexperienced presenter puts that up and expects a round of applause for a 95.
An A grade, right?
Exactly. But an experienced board member looks at that metric and instantly searches for the hidden risk. They will immediately ask, wait, does that remaining 5% include our most critical financial systems?
Are our crown jewels exposed?
Yes. They immediately question whether that 95% is just a measurement of your team's busy work or if it represents a genuine reduction in danger to the company.
And honestly, this concept applies way beyond the CISO role. Like, if you are a mid-level marketing manager pitching a new software platform to your department head, they do not care about the cloud storage capacity.
Or the API call limits.
Exactly. They care about whether this tool reduces the time it takes to launch a campaign by 3 days. If you can't translate the metric into a business outcome, you are wasting their time.
That translates perfectly. Boards and executives don't want more metrics. They want fewer metrics with much, much stronger business meaning.
Which brings us to the third pitfall.
Right, which happens when leaders try to manage those metrics by avoiding uncertainty entirely.
The natural instinct to just hide the bad stuff.
Yeah, they highlight only successful audits and improvements to appear perfectly in control of the environment.
Okay, I have to push back on this particular point, though.
Go for it.
Because if I am standing in front of the board of directors, literally the exact people who determine my compensation, my budget, my continued employment, acknowledging uncertainty seems incredibly dangerous.
It feels risky, sure.
Right. Like if I stand up there and say, hey, everyone, we have massive unresolved gaps in our armor, aren't they going to fire me for incompetence? Shouldn't a leader project absolute bulletproof confidence?
It's a completely natural fear. But it is based on a really flawed understanding of executive psychology.
How so?
Well, think about who sits on a board. These are typically seasoned business leaders who have survived decades in corporate environments.
Right.
They know firsthand that running a business is inherently risky. And they absolutely know that cybersecurity is an arms race with no finish line. There is simply no such thing as bulletproof security.
Okay, so they already know it's not perfect.
Exactly. So if you walk into that room and paint this perfectly rosy picture where every metric is green and there are zero systemic challenges, it breeds immediate skepticism.
Oh, I see. They assume you're either lying to cover your tracks or you are just so blind to the threat landscape that you don't even know what you're missing.
Yes. Trying to look perfect actually highlights your incompetence. In the boardroom, vulnerability is not weakness.
That's a huge mindset shift.
It really is. Acknowledging ambiguity and highlighting unresolved risk actually demonstrates leadership maturity. It tells the board, I have the vision to see the dangers, the integrity not to hide them, and the strategic capacity to manage them.
You're shifting from a defensive posture to a proactive one.
Exactly.
Okay, so if the board doesn't want technical perfection and they don't want 100 operational dashboards, what are they actually looking for?
The author outlines 3 fundamental unwritten questions that shape the entire boardroom interaction.
And these aren't on the agenda, right?
No, never on the agenda.
Yeah.
But they are the filter for every single word you say. The first unwritten question is, do you understand the organization's risk landscape?
Meaning, can you articulate the biggest threats without the jargon?
Right. Not an exhaustive spreadsheet of every software bug, but the core risks that actually threaten the company's survival. Alex 7 provides this masterclass example of what a credible answer to this sounds like.
Oh yeah, I love this example.
So imagine a leader saying, our most significant exposure today is credential compromise affecting customer-facing services. Our current controls reduce the probability substantially, but we remain dependent on several legacy identity integrations that we are phasing out.
Let's break down why that works so well, because it's brilliant. First, Credential compromise is just a clean, executive way of saying attackers are stealing employee passwords to walk through the front door.
Exactly.
And legacy identity integrations is just a polite way of saying we are still relying on old, outdated login software that doesn't play nice with modern security standards.
Right. But notice what the leader didn't do. They didn't mention specific hashing algorithms or drop any CVE vulnerability scores.
Which is the technical grading system for software flaws.
Right. They just stated the business exposure and the reality of the outdated tech holding them back. It is clear, it's prioritized, and it's deeply realistic.
It sets such a good tone.
It does. And once you establish that you understand the threat landscape, the board's natural reflex is to wonder if you have actually fortified the house against those specific threats. They want to know your blind spots.
Which brings us to the second unwritten question. Do you know where the organization is vulnerable?
Which ties right back to our discussion about not hiding uncertainty.
Right. The board expects you to have weaknesses. They just demand that you have visibility into them.
Yes. You gain massive credibility when you deliberately surface areas requiring investment. The text uses this example. Our detection capabilities in cloud environments are strong, but our response automation is still immature. That gap increases the time required to contain incidents, which is why our next investment cycle focuses on automated containment.
Again, translating the technical perfectly. Detection basically means our burglar alarms work when someone breaks into our online servers.
Right.
But response automation is immature. Means our system can't automatically kick the intruder out. A human still has to manually intervene, which slows everything down.
Yeah.
So the leader just took a glaring weakness, we kick bad guys out too slowly, and used it to perfectly justify their next budget request for automated tools.
It's brilliant framing. You aren't hiding the problem, you are managing it deliberately. You are showing them the exact lever you need to pull to reduce the company's risk.
That perfectly sets up the third fundamental question. Can you translate risk into decisions?
Ultimately, boards care about decisions, not data. They are tasked with deciding where capital goes, what risks are acceptable, and how cyber threats affect the company's strategic goals.
And the moment you connect your security posture to business decisions, your entire identity in that room transforms.
You cease to be a technical reporter, and you become a trusted advisor.
The example provided for this one is fantastic, too. The leader says, our expansion into European markets will increase exposure to data protection enforcement. To support that strategy safely, we need to strengthen data classification and monitoring capabilities.
Notice how different that feels.
Completely different. You aren't sitting there defensively begging for money for a new firewall. You are actively enabling the company's revenue goals. You want to expand to Europe. Great. I am here to make sure we don't get crushed by massive regulatory fines when we do it.
It is pure strategic advising. And this is exactly what the author means by the title of the article. This is how you perform.
Because the word perform, in this context, it feels slightly loaded, right?
It does a bit.
It implies putting on a theatrical mask or like tap dancing around the truth to give them a good show.
It is a provocative word choice, for sure. But in executive communication, to perform means managing the subtle signals that shape perception.
So it's not acting.
No, it's about your clarity of explanation. It's your composure when a director interrupts you with a really hostile question. It's your willingness to hold eye contact and calmly acknowledge a systemic vulnerability.
Because a technically flawless presentation will completely fail if the leader appears flustered.
Exactly. A concise briefing with strong strategic framing leaves a lasting impression of competence.
Okay, so we have mapped out the trap, the three communication pitfalls, and the hidden questions the board is constantly asking. The critical piece for you, the listener, is application.
How to actually do it.
Right. How do we practically change our preparation to answer those unwritten questions before we even step into the room? And the source material offers a really concrete preparation playbook.
And this playbook requires a total shift in workflow. Security leaders who succeed do not start their preparation by opening up last quarter's PowerPoint deck and just updating the numbers.
No, save as and tweak.
Nope. They start with a blank page and focus entirely on the narrative. Rule number 1 of the playbook is identify the 3 most important messages.
Before a single chart is built, you have to define the 3 conclusions the board should remember when you leave the room.
Just 3.
Right. The piece suggests focusing on the most significant cyber risks currently facing the organization, the biggest tangible improvements since the last meeting, and the most critical investment required moving forward.
And every single thing you say and every slide you show has to support one of those 3 pillars. If it doesn't, it gets cut.
Ruthless editing.
Ruthless editing is a core executive skill. Which brings us to rule number 2, where the actual translation happens. Translate metrics into implications. Every number you present must answer the question, what does this mean for the business?
The before and after example provided here is incredibly useful. So, the traditional technical way to present a metric is to just read the raw data. We reduced phishing susceptibility from 18% to 7%.
And to a board, that just sounds like you ran a drill and got a better test score.
Right, because phishing is just those fake emails designed to trick employees into handing over their passwords. So instead of talking about the drill, you translate the implication.
What's the new phrasing?
You say, our recent simulations indicate that our credential compromise risk has dropped significantly, which directly reduces the likelihood of a major account takeover attack.
See, the board hears business impact there. They hear that the likelihood of a catastrophic corporate crisis has materially decreased because of your team's work.
It's so much more powerful. And rule number 3 is, prepare for the questions that matter.
Board members, honestly, regardless of the industry, they tend to ask variations of the exact same questions.
Like what?
What is our biggest cyber risk right now? How does our security posture compare to our industry peers? Are we investing enough money in security to be safe? And, of course, the all-time classic, what keeps you awake at night?
Oh yeah, the keep you awake question.
It's vital to understand that these questions are not traps designed to expose your ignorance. They are genuine temperature checks. The board is trying to gauge your confidence and your prioritization.
So a strong leader anticipates these exact questions and has thoughtful, business-aligned responses holstered and ready to go.
Exactly.
Okay, so if a listener wants to start applying this today, like to really get out of the engineering mindset and into the strategic mindset, what are the immediate next steps?
Well, Alex 7 outlines 3 immediate actions you can take right now. First, redesign your presentation deck.
Just tear it down.
Yeah, pull up your current slides and aggressively audit them. Ask yourself, which of these slides merely prove my team is busy rather than explaining the company's risk?
Which metrics lack clear business implications?
Exactly. Which visual diagrams require an engineering degree to decipher? You have to replace that complexity with clarity. A shorter, sharper briefing always wins.
Less really is more. So what is the second step?
Build a risk narrative. Define the few cyber risks that actually matter to the organization and write them out purely in business terms.
So frame them around the probability of the event happening, the potential financial or reputational impact to the business, the progress you are making, and the capital investments you need.
Yes, that narrative must become the architectural backbone of every conversation you have with leadership.
So if you fix the deck and build the narrative, it seems the only thing left is actually changing how you speak on a daily basis.
Exactly, which is the third step. Practice strategic translation internally.
Right, because you cannot save this skill exclusively for the boardroom. It will feel totally unnatural and forced.
You'll stumble over the words. So when you are discussing operational topics with your own engineering team, practice phrasing the outcomes in business terms.
Like the endpoint detection thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, we need stronger endpoint detection, meaning better burglar alarms on our employees' actual laptops, practice framing it out loud as, improving endpoint detection reduces the time attackers can operate undetected inside our corporate environment.
You are building the muscle memory of an executive translator.
Precisely.
That everyday practice aligns beautifully with the teaser at the end of the article for Alex 7's next rule in the series. Rule number 13 will cover using data to say no, which reinforces the idea that the strongest business decisions are supported by evidence, not just positional authority.
That's going to be a good one.
Definitely. Look, speaking the language of business impact rather than technical activity is an ultimate superpower. It doesn't matter if you are a CISO sitting in front of a Fortune 500 board or a manager trying to pitch a process improvement to your boss. Knowledge is only truly valuable when it is translated so that others can understand it and actually apply it to their decision-making.
Bridging that gap really is the essence of leadership. However, analyzing this whole dynamic raises a philosophical question about the modern corporate structure that I think is worth mulling over.
Ooh, I am always here for a provocative thought to end on. Where does this lead us?
Well, we have just spent this entire deep dive establishing that technical leaders bear the absolute burden of translating complex technical reality into simple, digestible business risk for the board.
Right, it's all on their shoulders.
But does the board themselves have a dangerous blind spot here?
What do you mean?
By demanding that cybersecurity and technology in general be constantly spoon-fed to them purely in traditional analog business terms, are boards dodging their own fiduciary responsibility?
Oh.
Right. In a modern landscape where technology isn't just a supporting tool, but where technology fundamentally is the business, shouldn't corporate directors be expected to become at least minimally tech literate? Are we putting the entire burden of translation on the wrong side of the table?
That is a fascinating question. Is the board avoiding the reality of the digital age by forcing every modern problem through an antiquated business filter?
Exactly.
It brings us full circle. You can engineer the most perfect, mathematically sound vehicle in the world, but if the people legally in charge of steering the car refuse to learn what the pedals actually do, the precision of your engineering won't save you when the road gets rocky.
A translation failure ultimately hurts everyone in the vehicle.
Absolutely. Keep that in mind the next time you step into the room to pitch your ideas. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.